Huh? Huh? Yeah.
Yeah. This is for all you non-philosophizing black sheep, unwelcome, pushed to the side motherfuckers like me.
Fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way. Yeah. Fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way. Let's get down to business. These bitches got glitches. And you thought you'd dismiss us? Nah. Now I'm laughing in stitches. See, the problem be, it'll be a tragic travesty to come after me. So just know this is how we get down. Respect that shit like a pronoun, bitch. Yeah. Fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way. Yeah. And fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way. Yeah. Fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way. Yeah. Fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way.
Is this thing on? Oh, we're live this time. We're live this time.
Oh, snap.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to OZone Live, and your boy Oz with you, and Dr. Joshua Bowen's in the building. What's up, Dr. Josh?
I'm doing all right. You know what I mean?
Just chilling.
Just chilling. I'm not cool. That's what I've learned just now. I was trying to think of something really cool to say and just blank, you know. So
let me I'm putting the levels up there so that we're a little quiet. So let me bump that volume. Yeah, I mean,
do a little check.
All right. Before we get started, Dr. Josh and I already did this once, so we had a little rehearsal.
And I still fucked it up. Did you see that?
We talked to ourselves for about 10 minutes. So, but yes, somehow we got hit with a strike. I've appealed it because it's probably bullshit because it's, this place. So if you haven't, go hit the subscribe button on this channel. It's my channel under my name, but that way, if we do any more streams for probably the next week, we're probably going to do it here, and then we'll also upload it to the TANG channel and premiere it. That way, for people that miss it, can still catch everything we're doing here. But I'm not going to let the YouTubes tell me what to do. I do what I want. But let me hit these announcements again real quick. This is where we got a really good rehearsal last time, so see how bad I butcher this. We might have to push this back a couple minutes, but this will be later on tonight, scheduled for 10, but we'll probably have to bump it back a little bit. But Paul and I will be talking about coping with mental health, but specifically as dads, and how we, how we cope and how we help our kids to understand that, dad's brain is wired a little differently than, maybe other people that they spend a lot of time with or in their life, so on and so forth. And then I was going to do this this week, but probably going to have to wait till the first of next week, but we'll be doing the final episode of the Netflix original documentary, Keep Sweet, Pray, and Obey. This is in the Discord, the TANG Discord, and if you try to use Nightbot, it's not going to work here. So we can get the links out here in a minute. But so we'll be doing that. And then either Sunday or Monday, Jena will have her next installment of #NotLadylike with her new intro, I might add, that she finished last night, and it's it might be the best. It might be the best intro on the YouTubes. Just saying. And then next week, and all this is published on the TANG channel. the schedule, but we're gonna have a live stream with some of the guests from and panelists from Better, so you don't want to miss that. It's kind of a review and looking forward to 2023. We've already started some of the basic planning and formatting and all that. And then my man Aaron Coalson is going to be joining me next week as well on What's Your Story. I'm really looking forward to that one. Aaron and I have grown a great friendship, and we message each other I would say pretty frequently, pretty regularly, and just checking on each other. So great dude, and it's awesome to have him in the community with us. And then on the 16th, Drew, or you probably know him as Genetically Modified Skeptic, will be joining me for another edition of What's Your Story. That'll be fun. I appreciate Drew. And then last but not least, part 3 of Comfortable with the Uncomfortable, we will be discussing authenticity and what that means to us individually, and also what it means to be able to, to have the ability to do that with those that, we care about and love, and hopefully that's reciprocated. But I think that's it for now, and I went fast just because, one, we already did it, and now we're, due to our hashtag TANG tech shit, we're a little behind. So, but Dr. Josh, great to have you. And I do want to ask the question that I asked you as we realized that we weren't live. This weekend, like I said, it's crazy because it was a month. A month ago now that we had Better, and it feels like it was just last week to me. But time flies. But what did you walk away from Better with, or takeaways?
I was just really impressed by how professional the whole thing was run, and that was in spite of some pretty significant setbacks that I was privy to. But I mean, I think particularly for a first time running through the conference, no, I just think you knocked it out of the park in spite of all those difficulties. So I'm excited, and I know that you did well outside of my own, in my own estimation. Outside of that, several people came up to me unsolicited and said, do you think he'll do this again next year? Is this going to be like an annual thing? So, yeah, I mean, I think you hit a home run with it.
Thank you. And I know Jena, if Jena was here, she'd say the same thing. But yeah, thank you for your support. Well, obviously speaking, but your support. And yeah, I wish, well, first of all, somebody thinks you're sexy. And yeah, I was obviously we love having you. We're excited to have you there, but hopefully next year Megan can join you as well.
Yeah.
She'll probably do a better job at selling the merch.
Oh yeah, and everybody likes her a lot more than me, so let's be honest,
But no, let's get into it. So if you guys don't know, Dr. Josh and Megan, they have a YouTube channel, website. It's Digital Humarubi. I'm just kidding. Digital Hammurabi. And first, let me pull up this website here real quick. And this is their website. Josh, anything on here that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, Megan's Humans Against Poor Scholarship is something that she's incredibly proud of and should be. So yeah, you can find all that stuff on the website. And she's got an Etsy store that she hasn't been pushing too terribly much recently. Having twins that are a year old makes it a little difficult to really be proactive about that stuff. But I mean, she makes some amazing stuff. Kill the Priest has his mask, his Humbaba mask. So, Flav has his clocks and Priest has his Humbaba mask, So
it's the that we were joking backstage. Kill the Priest is the Sumerian Flava Flav. And if you guys are hip with Flava Flav. You know what I mean? If not, that one's going to go right over your head. And I got one more to pull up, and this is what we're here to talk about this evening. So let me get this pulled up here. And I also have a link, so let me get the link here. Here we go. It's official.
Hell yeah.
It's officially official. So I have to start off with this, and I'll let Dr. Josh kind of start sharing what's in volume 2 and what we can expect. Maybe, some of the additions or revisions or whatever from volume 1. But Biddy's not here. It's kind of a last minute notice. I tried to reach out to her to get on here to do it, but volume 2's out. We all know what that means. Volume 3's coming. But Dr. Josh, tell the peoples what they can expect.
Yeah. So just by looking at this, it might look a little confusing because it still says pre-order for the Kindle version. And that's true. Amazon's publishing is strange. We had it set for September 1st, and then we, got it done early. So Megan tried to just make it go live, and they make you wait 3 days. So it'll be Saturday that all those pre-orders will, all those pre-orders will go. And we have a phenomenal community. I think right now we have 265 pre-orders for the Kindle. It's just pretty crazy. Volume 1 had 122. So this community really stepped up. I appreciate it. That should boost the rankings really high. But you can buy the hardcover now. You can buy the paperback now. Of course, you can pre-order the Kindle, and then it'll be delivered on Saturday. The nice thing about Volume 2 is this thing was peer-reviewed pretty extensively, both by academics and by enthusiastic and intelligent non-specialists. And one of the things that I heard from everyone that read both Volume 1 and Volume 2 is that they liked Volume 2 better. And I think the reason for that, they said they really liked Volume 1, but they thought Volume 2 was better, which I was really excited about. And I think the reason is that I was very intentional about what I put in Volume 2. And Volume 1 kind of came together, not on its own, but it wasn't done with the same intentionality. And I had a lot of practice through Volume 1. So Volume 2, I think actually will be really enjoyable for everybody. And we have some pretty cool stuff, that went into it. One of the things that everybody's been waiting for is this whole violence, divine commands of violence in the Old Testament. So, the 1 Samuel 15, what do we do? And when Christian apologists say, oh no, it's just hyperbole, raise your hand if you've heard an apologist say, no, it's just hyperbole. It's like when they said, oh, the football team killed the other football team in the game. It's just, so what do you do with that? How do you handle that? But there's some really cool chapters, and we can talk about, as much or as little as you want. But I'm excited about it. I'm really excited about it. It seems like we've had some really, really good people peer review it, including Pat Lowinger and several of his colleagues. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm excited.
And wait, I'm going to pull this back up real quick because I just, as for our channel and as your friend supporters, I just want to highlight. It's hard to see on the screen here. Let me see. But it already does say number 1 new release. That's pretty fucking badass.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
Hell yeah. So, well,
And Tang, I have to tell you, like, Tang features fairly prominently in the introduction and the conclusion. So,
Tang gang. No, it's I know for me, and if again Jen and the others were here, I think one of the reasons, other than we're friends, that we embrace it and love to use it is, for me personally, one like the chapter 1 where it was on David's channel the other day. I was talking about your book, and I can read the first part, even as a former evangelical Christian, and kind of get that refresher on this is what the book told us.
yes.
I get to skip the I forgot that he begot that they begot that I forgot, and I get to get around to all of that and just get to the quote unquote meat of the story.
Yeah.
So there's that part, but then you do a very good job as a writer of keeping a level for someone. Again, I'm speaking for me, for someone that I don't really enjoy to read, because usually it's like, man, whoever wrote this shit, can you give me, like, I need a break, give me 5th grade level, give me
Yeah.
5th grade level, so I can read and digest and retain it. You know what I mean? And I think that's that. And then number 3 is it's attacking the maybe attacks the wrong word to use, but addressing. I'm trying to be, fuck it, we're attacking. Going after the core of what Christians hold on to. That they don't hold on to philosophy. They don't hold on to, all of these what if concepts for these deeply held beliefs or bad ideas, right? That book is at the core of what they do believe and what they hold on to. And I think if we can, just like you experience, I experience, and many have experienced, once you really critically start to approach that in historical accuracy or things left, just things blatantly left out or added later, those things start to fall apart. So I love that those 3 elements, for me, that those 3 elements are there, because I think it helps us have those better conversations.
Yeah. And I one of the things that always puzzles me, and I mean, I guess it shouldn't because I did it for 26 years, right? But is this requirement seemingly that the text has to be inerrant, right? It has to be inspired and it has to be inerrant. And when you do something like that, when that stake goes into the ground, I mean, get ready to do some dancing, right? And the problem is that you always have to be afraid of the next discovery. You always have to be afraid the next time the spade goes, the archaeologist's spade goes down into the ground. You have to be afraid for the next paper that comes out, because the reality is that if you've closed your fist around your conclusion, you better damn well hope it never changes, right? That nothing ever really conflicts with it. And this is what you see. One of the examples that I give in the book is there's a chapter on the Exodus. Is the Exodus like history or myth, or something in between? And one of the things that's a real problem for holding to like a more fundamentalist evangelical approach to the Exodus narrative is the number of people that are supposed to have come out of Egypt, right? If you go to Exodus chapter 12, it talks about 600,000 fighting men. And that's a real problem because, when you start to include women and children, you're up around 2.5 to 3 million people. And everybody agrees, whatever position you take on the Exodus, everybody agrees that there were only 3 million people in all of Egypt during the New Kingdom. So you can't have the entire population of Egypt leaving Egypt, right? It just doesn't work that way. And what's interesting about this is that the Hebrew's pretty clear there, right? And it uses this word for thousand. It's the Hebrew word aleph. And yeah, everybody always translated this 600,000. It says 600 aleph, 600 aleph, so 600,000. And then it became clear through archaeology and anthropology and, the study of the region, all these things. Well, wait, that's impossible. There couldn't have been that many people that left. But you've got that conclusion locked down in your fist, right? So what to do? Well, maybe 1,000 doesn't really mean 1,000. Maybe it means like, well, here over in this other passage, it can take on the meaning of like a military unit. Maybe that's what it means here. So yeah, but so it's like 600 like military. So maybe it's like 1,000 people or something. Maybe it's a lot smaller than this. Maybe, now we've got something. Well, I mean, I talk about the problems with that interpretation in the chapter, but I mean, just on the surface, when your rationale, when your motivation is, well, everybody's translated this word this way for so long, but now we know that doesn't work historically. Well, is the text wrong? No. Can't be that. Can't be that. So what could it be, right? What's possible? And that's really the big thing that I talk about in the book. And then I'll shut up. Oh, sorry, but this was, the introduction and really the main thread that runs through the book was inspired by the Better Conference. Because what I spoke on was, how do we try to engage with someone who only requires the possibility of something to be true,
right,
in order for them to believe it? And the example that I like to give all the time is, if you're married to somebody like Megan, if somebody came up to the door right now and said, Megan murdered Frank, right? It wouldn't take much for me to be convinced that she didn't do that. I know Megan, right? I know her really well. And so any possibility that would make it, anything that's possible that would make it so that, show that she didn't do it, I'd hang on to that very, very tightly, right? And the same is true when it, damn that Frank. Thank Frank, but the same is true in Christian apologetics, right? Because when you start with a conclusion, when you start with the position, when you start with, we know the Exodus has to be historically reliable as it appears in the biblical text. Whenever you point out a contradiction, all you need is a possibility in order for it to work. Isn't it possible that it means military unit? Well, yeah, I mean, it's possible. But that's all they need. When you talk about how did Judas die, right? In the Gospels, did he hang himself or did he fall? Right. Well, isn't it possible that he hung himself and then after he died, he slipped out of the noose and he flipped over and fell on the rock? Isn't that possible that it? Yeah, it's possible. And so the thing that I try to do in the book is make it easier for you, either as the skeptic or atheist, or fingers crossed, even the evangelical fundamentalist, to ask yourself, to put the onus back on you, back on the person that's arguing for the possible solution, to say, is that the most reasonable conclusion? And so how do we do that? How do we get people to, because Oz, they always have the God's ways are higher than our ways argument, right? How is it that God can drown the entire world, including babies? Well, we might not know, but God's ways are higher than our ways. I mean, look at Isaiah 55, we know. How do you combat that? How do you deal with that? So,
yeah, and for the conference, I think that probably helped more people than you realize, or that we realize, because I think that's one of the things I hear discussed the most is, you know, whether I initiate the conversation or not. Once that conversation is engaged, what do I do? Where do you know, where do I go? Because, you know, just telling them that they're wrong,
Yeah.
you know, isn't going to get us anywhere. You know, a perfect example, you know, YouTube told me you're wrong. You're not streaming tonight. Fuck you. You know, but it's that as soon as you tell somebody, no, you're wrong, or no, you can't, it's almost that innate human, you know, element where it's like, well, watch me, or no, I'm not wrong. You can't.
That's right.
You can't tell me that I'm wrong. And how do we, you know, so how do we sidestep that, just that instant guard?
Yep.
And get
That's exactly right.
And get into it, you know. And I guess to use a basketball, you know, analogy, how do we pivot and then do the MJ fadeaway, you know, and make it count, you know what I mean? And take those opportunities to maybe shine a little bit of light, that maybe it starts that first little crack, you know, in that wall. And then we can treat it like the Christians, and I'm here to plant the seed, and God will bring the harvest.
Right. But that's really it, right? Because essentially what the book is advocating for, if you adopt this method, if the opportunity or the circumstance calls for it, to be able to say to someone, you know, like take something like, you know, Nebuchadnezzar in the book of Daniel. Nebuchadnezzar is not Belshazzar's father, right? But then they'll come back and say, well, the word father in Hebrew can mean grandfather too. So it could just mean grandfather. And you're like, yeah, but he wasn't his grandfather either. I'm like, yeah, but isn't it possible that, you know, one of the king's you know, daughters married Nabonidus, who was his father, and so then he became like his? Is that possible? What the book advocates for is for you to say, okay, that's possible. Build your case. Convince me, right? Where's the evidence, right? Where is it that, I mean, like, because, all right, you're going to pretend you're going to write a paper on it, buddy. Like, go ahead, convince me. What are your points? Why do you think, what is the evidence that, you know, Nebuchadnezzar had a daughter that married Nabonidus? What's the evidence? And they'll find very, very quickly, they don't have any. It's just speculation. And so then it's like, okay, well, if there's evidence over here and speculation over here, do you really think that this is the most reasonable position? And why do you hold to it? And you will find every time that it's because, well, there's this other piece of evidence that I have, and that is that God is real, and my God is real, and this Bible is the inspired word of God. And so I know it has to be right. So then it shifts away from the actual argument and now takes you back to this underlying, you know, underlying foundation that you can then say, okay, let's deal with that.
Yeah. And, yeah, that's what, because I think anyway, and I've only had the opportunity with any family to have this conversation, I think once, maybe twice. And those both were before volume 1, you know, was ever released. And I tried to approach it like okay, let's get around the Bible stuff, because that at the core of it, you don't believe it's true just because somebody wrote it. There is a underlying reason why you believe that this thing is 100% true, you know, and deadly accurate. And it comes down to the guy in the sky, you know. And then, you know, that's why I would encourage everybody, you know, have this information in your arsenal, you know, and have it ready to go. But also, once we can get past that, whether you want to call it the Socratic method or, you know, street epistemology, also be brushed up on that, because then you can start to go at the core of the reliability, you know, of their methodology to even believe that this deity, you know, exists, you know, once you get past the scriptural part. So there's, you know, multiple tools that we should and need to, to have there and ready. And I think Volume 1 and Volume 2 are great, especially for the fundamentalist, evangelical, charismatic. Like, this is God breathed, God inspired text. We have to fight that fight, because that's their manual, that's their handbook.
Yeah, and I mean, an example that I give. So there's that chapter on divine commands of violence, right? And how do we handle those things? I put a tweet out. It's been several weeks now, I think. But the tweet said, a man went into a place of worship and, in a suicide act, brought down the building on himself and 3,000 people that were in that place of worship. And then I entered down and wrote his name was Samson. And, if you think about that story, Samson's been called the first suicide bomber, right? Because that's what he did. He leaned up against the pillars. Yahweh gave him strength, and he pushed him down. But when you read that story, is he the hero or the villain? I mean, he's very much the hero, right? In fact, in Hebrews chapter 11, he's one of the great, heroes of the faith. But in any other context, Samson's a terrorist. I mean, straight up. And so then you have to ask, because I asked someone this, someone who's still an evangelical, fundamentalist evangelical Christian, and said, what do you think about that, about characterizing him, identifying him as a terrorist? No, because the Philistines were really, really bad, right? They were Israel's enemies. Yeah, but wouldn't the Philistines have said that about the Israelites? I mean, would it have been okay for a Philistine to do that to the Israelites? Well, no. Well, so then this is special pleading, right? It all goes back down to, mine is actually the right one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes this so insidious, I think, is that when you begin with the conclusion that you are correct and your interpretation of your particular text is correct, whether you realize that you're beginning with that conclusion, it makes it dangerously easy to grab onto any possibility that makes it fit. When you should be and would be much more critical, were you considering another religion, for example? That last example I'll give, and then I promise I'll be quiet. But I remember I was in a Sunday school class after I deconverted, and nobody knew that I deconverted. And the topic came up about prayer in schools, public schools. And a woman said, we need to get prayer back in schools. Now, this is like sort of out in rural Virginia. And everybody's like, yeah, we do. We need to get them back in schools, And I said, all right. Yeah, I agree. People need to be able to pray to Allah. They need to. And no, whoa. No, not that God. Not that prayer, right? Only mine, right? And it's like, well, wait a minute, what's good for the goose? Like, you can't just pick and choose. Because
you can if you're a fundamentalist Christian, though.
Yes, right. You can. I mean, you have to, right? So, I just think we have to be very critical about these things, very skeptical. And hopefully that's what the book allows us to do, at least a little bit better.
Yeah, and this would be a whole nother topic, so we don't have to go down this line. But the not just as far as the accuracy of the text or the reliability of prayer to Yahweh, but they scream prayer in school, but they only want prayer to Yahweh.
Mm-hmm.
because my whole thing is I don't believe in any of them, right? But if we're going to be fair and going to be consistent, then it needs to not just be the Christian prayer. Everybody needs to be able to pray whatever it is that they want to pray if we're going to allow that. Now, I don't want any of it, but if we're going to say yes to one, well, we have to be consistent across the board. And
That's right.
They want then it's never mind. We don't want that shit.
Yeah, no. I mean, I remember, I was I mean, go back to the book, but like I remember I was a chaplain for 7 years in one of the local jails, and it was a regional facility. It was pretty big, and I remember as one of the chaplains, part of my job was to not just care for people that were Christians, and there were many of them, obviously, but to care for anybody of any religious faith. And I remember one of the people that was senior to me there sort of went out of his way to do the absolute minimum for anybody that was a Muslim, right? What are the minimum requirements, right? Do they have to have a nice rug? No, they just have to have it just has to be like a rug. So, I mean, it got the shoddiest piece of carpet or something they could find. It was just really, but they'd spend time like threading those crosses, necklaces that glow in the dark, was it because that's the right one because it's mine, right? It's my because that's got to be right. And it's a real shame that people don't see the special pleading that takes place and the bias,
Yeah, we won't go there because we're talking about volume 2. That's what we're talking about. But I do have to ask 2 questions that maybe might not all the way line up with volume 2. But was it Juan Hopkin?
It's when I went to Hartford.
Hartford. And then the other one I have to ask, just because we all know my position, my stance on this, but Iron Charioteer wanted me to ask you. No, not that one. God damn it, this one. Is Josh a mythicist or a historicist?
I think people ask this question just to make me uncomfortable. Thanks, Iron Charioteer. I appreciate that. My standard answer is, this isn't my field. So when that's the case, I go with what the consensus of scholars in the field say, if I can. But I don't really like I don't really like that question. I really like that question. I think that may be why you put it up there. Let's see what's going on here.
Josh said, moving along. I won't put Dr. Strauss on the spot anymore on that. But you know what? You know how I feel. Kind of the Tang gang thing. And
yeah,
Jesus is a myth. But Josh is not. We do not agree on that, for the record. There was one more, but I lost it. So one of the things backstage we were talking about is 2 of the chapters in the new book, the Atheist Handbook to the Old Testament. Volume 2 is there's 2 of the 2 kind of the hot buzz topics or words that are kind of swirling around. So if you want to share what those are and kind of what you did to focus on.
Yeah. So 2 of the big archaeological topics, or topics that come up that sort of pull. Josh is a myth. It's true. That archaeologists have to deal with, right? And that the field of archaeology is tapped into to try to bolster support for these 2 things are the Exodus from Egypt and the conquest of Canaan. And whatever anybody says about these things, the consensus of scholars in the field, be they Egyptologists or archaeologists or biblical scholars, is that the biblical account, as appears in the book of Exodus, is not a reliable historical source, right? You can't just use the biblical text to write your history. And, nobody balks at that whatsoever when you say it about Neo-Assyrian royal inscriptions, right? Nobody has a problem when we look back at Naram Sin in the 24th century BCE and say, well, did the gods really make him a god? Like, did they really do that? Like, nobody wonders whether they should write that in their history that Naram Sin was made divine by the council of the gods. No, of course not. Why would we do that? As a matter of fact, we even, when we read things like, and if you've read Volume 1, you'll know about this, when we read about things like the Lagash border conflict, you had two cities that were fighting over this field, this land that was in between. And we only have one city's account. Right? We only have Lagash's account of what happened. And lo and behold, the other city, they were horrible. I mean, they broke their oaths. They didn't pay back their debts. They were just the worst of the world. I mean, it's just terrible, right? And so they had to go fight them. My God, what other choice was there? Nobody writes their goddamn history like Lagash was amazing. The other city of Umma was really, really bad. Like, nobody does that because we understand propaganda. We understand what texts do. But for some reason, very often when we come to the biblical text, particularly the Old Testament, that just goes out the window because this is a sacred text. This is inspired. It is inerrant in some way. This has to be, representative of the actual history. So what I do, and I am breaking, this is the other nice thing, I break little to no new ground in the book because that's never my goal. Almost never my goal is to break new ground. Because what I'm trying to do when you pick up one of these things is I want you to know that what you're reading is what in any given circumstance, if at all possible, this is what the consensus of scholars that are experts in this part of the field think about this. This is their consensus position. So like when we talk about the Exodus, I'm very explicit in the chapter. I'm not here to tell you which position is the correct position. For example, I'm blanking on a name now, which is really terrible. Ronald Hendel. Ronald Hendel's position is that it's cultural memory, right? And that's a very specific position. There are other people that say it's completely ahistorical. There are some people that say there's a kernel of historical truth that maybe something in the 13th century, has a small group of people coming out and going up into the highlands of Israel. There are other people that say, no, it's like an amalgamation of a whole bunch of different memories throughout the second millennium that are being brought together. Other people would say, no, it's, because Canaan was a province, it was under the thumb of Egypt, that, the people there are remembering that it's a time of slavery. And so that's sort of what it's akin to. I'm not trying to tell you which one of those is correct or if all of them are correct or none or whatever. What I am trying to say is that the consensus of scholarship is that you can't just pick up the biblical text and say, this is what happened, right? Is there a small group of evangelical scholars that hold to, that position that it's essentially historically reliable? Yes, but that's not the consensus. So we just kind of go through the evidence, that the data points, right, that scholars have to deal with when they put their interpretive models together. And we don't have to go through all of them, obviously, because that would take the entire volume. But some of the more important things that are discussed. And then the other thing that I deal with is the conquest of Canaan. And honestly, of the two, I think understanding the conquest account and the archaeology or the lack thereof that stands behind it is far more important. Because the argument is that wherever Israel came from, you know, of course, the text says it came from Egypt. Excuse me. Wherever they came from, the book of Joshua says that they came into the land across the Jordan River, kicked ass, and took names, right? And they conquered. And they wiped out, burned to the ground, a number of cities. And so if you're taking this fundamentalist or, you know, even more conservative evangelical approach to the text, you're going to say things like, well, if we go dig at the city of Jericho, we ought to see some really extensive remains, like some really extensive occupation at the site in the second half of the second millennium, the late Bronze Age, which is when this was supposed to have taken place. There should be like the remains of a huge city there with big walls, right? Is that what we find? No. There's like a very small amount of occupation. It's been called a village. And you know, there may have been I haven't seen any definitive evidence. There's the excavator, one of the excavators there now, Lorenzo Negro, is part of the Italian team, and he did a presentation a couple months ago where he sounded like he was suggesting that a fragment of a wall was found from the late Bronze Age. But even he says it's irrelevant to the question of whether the biblical text is historically reliable. But you know, as far as I know, you know, nothing's been published and peer reviewed that shows that. But the point is that Jericho's this tiny little thing, and it may have been actually completely abandoned at the end of the 13th century. And there are other cities that follow this pattern. So like the city of Arad, or the city of Heshbon, or the city of Dibon, like they all are supposed to have been conquered by the Israelites. And when you look at the archaeology, there's just nothing there. There's nobody living there during the late Bronze Age. So, you know, that's what we go through, and you know, the point of that chapter, it's one of the detailed chapters, right? It's one of the 4 hot button issues. Actually, that's the archaeology chapter, actually. So I guess there are 5 hot button issues in this book, but there's a little bit of detail there, but it's there because it's what you need if you're going to dig down into, see what I did there? Dig down archaeology, into the topic. You need to be armed with some of that data. But yeah, that's what we do. So if the Israelites were supposed to have come in and conquered, we should see lots of evidence of it, and we just don't. There's maybe 1 or 2 cities that could possibly fit. The closest that I think fits is Hatzor. But even that's not definitive. It's just, it fits. So yeah, those are good chapters, I think.
To kind of bounce off what you're saying, because I'm trying to put myself back in, put my Christian hat on, and because one thing I was never taught was just from a consensus level that, Austin, don't you understand? Like most of your historians, most of your, you know, so on and so forth, like they won't even stand, you know, behind some of the accuracy or the historical detail. That I think I might have started asking questions a lot sooner had I heard any language like that.
Yeah.
All I ever heard was, no, this is the damn truth, Josh.
Yeah.
this is the damn truth. There is no lack of consensus. There's no lack of evidence. And you know, so I think my follow-up question that, and we have a few in the chat we can get to. Should we be talking about that more? Is that you know, because so many times the especially the Christian theists love to use that consensus language. First of all, do you even know what it means? Like when I hear him use it, do you even know what that means? And secondly, do you understand how many of the important or critical details there's not consensus?
Yeah, I mean, this is why I think it's important to be very precise about what we're talking about. So, you know, there was a book that was published in 2015, and it's the publication of a bunch of papers that were given in San Diego, I think, in 2013, on the Exodus. Just all these different papers that were given on the Exodus by specialists in the field. And one of the things that you will see if you read through that book, in fact, there's a chapter dedicated to what are the positions on the Exodus. And you know, there is no real uniformity as to what positively people think happened, right? Or where it comes from, where this idea comes from. But what they do agree on is that you don't have 2.5 to 3 million people in the late Bronze Age walking out of Egypt, wandering in the desert for 40 years and coming into the land of Canaan, right? That's not what you have. And the same is true actually with the conquest to a degree, to a much smaller degree. You know, earlier on, there was this thought that because of what the Bible said, that the Israelites were outsiders that came into Canaan and conquered it, right? So they called that the conquest model, the outsider conquest model. Well, the more they dug, the less support there was for that, and the more support there was against it. Well, now, you know, scholars are in pretty clear agreement that the Israelites, for the most part, were Canaanites, right? And the debate now between people like William Deaver and Israel Finkelstein is like, well, you know, where did they come from? What kind of Canaanites were they? Were they pastoralists that like settled down, or were they people from the cities, or a mix of both? So there isn't uniformity on that front, like positive, what specifically happened. And I don't think you need that sort of positive agreement. The whole point here is to argue against this, you know, more conservative, fundamental, evangelical inerrancy position that holds to the basic or even the, you know, the very specific historicity of the text as presented. That's why I'm writing these books, is to deal with those positions, because they're so dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I saw a video pop up in my feed that Mike Winger had done recently, and it's a short. I didn't watch it. It was a short little video on it looked like it was something like, should women stay at home as wives, like, you know, or can they go out and work and a husband stay at home? What does the Bible say about that? And or like, it's not even like what's the truth? Like, what should we do? Like, what is the correct position on this? And essentially, it looked like all he was doing, from the description and from some of the comments, was saying, I surveyed the biblical texts to see what they say about that. Well, huh? I mean, is that how we're doing this now? Like, okay, can we get divorced and remarried? Well, let me read through the Bible. Let me just see what the Bible says about it. Well, look, motherfucker, don't go reading what it says about slavery, because I don't want you in charge if that's how we're doing this.
Oh, fuck.
Right? I mean, like, it's so, and again, I feel comfortable being critical of this because I did it myself for 26 years, right? How am I supposed to live? What are my values? Well, what does the Bible say? What saith the scriptures, right? And I want people to be free of that mindset. And I think this is one of the ways to do that.
It's so frustrating and brain numbing, and we all know that, but it's important we're having the conversations. It is important because we were there once in those positions, you know. So as much as we want to now bang our heads on the wall, we have to remember that we once held, or at least some of us held those same deeply held beliefs. But Hive Science wants to know if or how this alleged Dr. Josh can even make any claims about the Canaanites if he can't even ground his worldview in substantiated logic. So boom, roasted.
I think the problem here is that when we think about the metaphysical primary and the ultimate of the necessary preconditions of the ground of all being for the instantiation of the possible of impossible possibilities.
Oh, it makes me.
You atheists you're just twisting in the wind, right? It's all make believe to you because you can't do the instantiation of the possible impossibilities of the possible to the ground of all being. Amen.
Yeah, it's so brain numbing. That's worse. I can sit down and talk to a lay Christian all day because at least I know they're most of the time they're being charitable and trying to be honest interlocutors. That shit, it's like, what?
Yeah.
You're not even trying to have a conversation. You just want bullshit to come out of your word hole. That's all. That's all you want right now. But anyway,
and and I think this is actually a nice segue, because one of the things that I have noticed, and look, I'm not a philosophy guy, right? So I really I tune in with your intro. Non-philosophizing, right? That's me, right? I'm a non-philosophizing atheist. I probably should read some more on philosophy, but here I am. It is what it is. I got shit to do. But for me, I'm just kidding. It's an important thing. Hopefully Danny doesn't hear this and kill me. But for me, so often in this, this type of argument, how far does it get you, right? Touche. I will obey. One of the things that I find, one of the things that I find is that in these arguments, where is it that they get you? They get you to a deity, right? The idea of a deity. Okay, I mean, I don't. That doesn't mean a lot to me. If everything works together really well for the argument, and you get to a deity, well, I'm like, great. Okay, get me to this deity, right? Let's make that leap, because for me, the moment that you start saying, well, according to this book, according to this ancient text, you shouldn't X. Old or new, as my grandfather used to say. I don't know exactly where it comes from, but this is where it's a problem, and that's where I push back. Because I say, wait a second, this text doesn't say what you think it says. And if you're going to be consistent, you need to be consistent with it. And I hope if you're a decent human, you won't be. So for example, There's a chapter in here on sex crimes. And essentially, it's just looking at adultery and rape in the ancient Near East. And if you're going to be consistent, if you're going to try to draw your values from the Old Testament, for example, what do you do with a passage like Deuteronomy 22, 28 to 29, where it says, if a man rapes an unbetrothed virgin, then he marries her, right? Has to pay the father an exorbitant bunch of money. But the girl has no say whatsoever in what happens to her. Consent isn't an issue. Is that how we're operating today? No, of course not. And so, I think being able to look these ancient texts, honestly in the face, as it were, and say, all right, what is it that this is actually advocating for? And to be able to then say, wait, maybe we shouldn't be deriving our values from these texts. Maybe we should develop our values based on what we know and this moral progress that we've made, and then look back to these texts and rake in the good and shovel out the bad, right? Just like they would do with the Epic of Gilgamesh, just like they would do with the Odyssey. Like, there are good things in there, good lessons to take, and things that we don't take. But why is it that when we come to this particular ancient text, we don't do that? So it's a problem.
Sorry, I almost made the rookie mistake and forgot to unmute. But I've got better. It only took me 3 years, two and a half, whatever it's been, but I've got better. We do have a couple questions here, and then we'll talk about where they can go to purchase the book one more time before we wrap up, because I will need to get ready for the next show with Paul. So, but I want to make sure we have time to answer a couple of these questions and
awesome.
Send them. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I still do too. Let me pull these up here. Let's see. Dr. Josh, tell us more about Ink Guy's rib magic. Apparently the rib story is not original.
Yeah, so this one's tough, right? So there's a Sumerian story that comes from, around 2000 BCE, so long before the biblical text, that talks about the god Enki, and he's, got this, it's an interesting story. I'll just say that. I won't go into it too terribly much. But one of the things that happens is he gets ill, and there's a mother goddess that aids him in delivering babies from himself, as it were. And one of the things that are delivered are named after the parts of his body that hurt. It's a weird story. One of the beings that comes out is Ninti, the deity Ninti. Nin means lady, T means rib. So like lady of the rib. Now that sounds really great, right? When it comes to thinking of the Adam and Eve story, right? Lady of the rib, that would fit really well. It's hard to make a direct connection between those. It's not that it's necessary to do that. But if there is, if there is a connection between the Sumerian story of Enki and Horsag and the Eve story, it's probably one of a motif, right? Something that's sort of in the air that would have originated from Mesopotamian literature or mythology, but then would have come down. In other words, it's hard to make a case that the Judean scribe is sitting there with, a tablet, and It's in Sumerian, going, oh, damn, I'll put that in here. Right? I don't think that's what's happening. Yeah, so that's a very difficult connection to make. I do have, just so it's clear, I do have an entire chapter called "Did the Old Testament Plagiarize?" And actually, I'm really, really proud of it because, it's basically looking at what plagiarism means, what types of dependencies, and what type of dependence can we see that the writers of Genesis 1 through 11, what did they depend on? What other types of texts or motifs? Is it direct? Is it indirect? Is it conscious? Is it unconscious? We sort of unpack all of those things with examples, and I'm really excited actually about that chapter. I think it's clear, which is I'm happy that I think I was able to do that, make it clear.
I think that'll be helpful, especially as a mythicist, because this is Oz philosophy right here. The Bible is taken or borrowed from other ancient myths. Therefore, the Bible is a myth. Therefore, Jesus is a myth. Boom, roasted.
Boom, roasted.
Just kidding.
But I mean, it's true, right? I mean, it like this idea, and thankfully, evangelicals are moving away from this. But there are still some very strong advocates in more fundamentalist circles that would say, like, no, the Old Testament is not borrowing, is not dependent upon ancient Near Eastern mythology. There's just no way around it. Of course it is. So like I go into, and again, these are not my ideas that I'm sharing. What I've done is I'm distilling down scholarship in this area and giving lots of examples of it. But yeah, the dependency is clearly there. The question is more about, is it direct? Is it indirect? Is it conscious? Is it unconscious? But in the same way that if a band right now, the example that I always give, sorry, and this will be the last thing I say, but the example that I always give is KJ52. Do you remember him, KJ52?
Hell yeah.
You know, somebody came up to him at a concert afterwards, apparently, and said, "You sound like Eminem." And his reaction, at least the way that it came across to me, was, "No, I do my own thing, you know." Okay. I mean, he may not be consciously dependent upon Eminem and his style, but clearly Eminem has had a tremendous influence on him, right? And so whether he knows it or not, he is dependent in his work and his style on Eminem. And the same is true in so many areas of life, right? Think about the people that influence you. And if you hang out with somebody for a while, your speech patterns change, you know, and you start using, I mean, my God, since I've started hanging out with Heathen Queen, you know, like, you know what I mean? I say that all the time now, you know, so, because homage, but yeah, it's an important thing to be able to recognize the different ways that dependency takes place. It's not an on-off switch, right? It's not like all or nothing.
In the words of Dr. Josh, God is Eminem. And I mean, Eminem did say in a lyric, one of his recent songs that came out, that God is his alias. And if, what do you say? God is my alias. So if I don't have faith in me and you don't have faith in me, we all must be atheists. But that was clever. But I'll get one or two more questions in here. So guys, if I don't get to all of them, I apologize. But I do have to take care of a couple things in between shows. I have a feeling that there's maybe some tongue-in-cheek here. I have no idea because I don't even know what it is or what it means. But maybe you can help me, Josh.
I think this is a play on the 7, sort of like the standard 7 people groups that are talked about in like the Book of Deuteronomy. So the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, the Mosquitobites is another one that we always say, the Mosquitobites. But no, stalagmites. I think that's probably what that is a play on.
Yeah, because I think, isn't that a stone or a...
Yeah, stalagmite and stalactite. One is up and one is down. I can't remember which one's which.
Yeah, that's what she said. And then I think this is probably the best way to segue into plugging the site to go purchase the book. But Dr. Josh, is the book more how to see old information in unfamiliar or multiple perspectives?
Yes. Sorry, I think if I understand the question right, like something like the Samson story. You know, if you've grown up as an evangelical Christian, when you read the Samson story, he's the good guy, right? You don't see him as the bad guy, because that's you've been trained to do that. And this is part of the issue when we think about divine commands of violence. For example, one of the things that I point out is, and I shouldn't have read that comment because I lost what I was saying.
My apologies. I was a terrible host.
No. One of the things that I point out is, it's in the violence chapter. What was I going to say? I hate MS. I don't know. What were we talking about? I don't remember what we were talking about.
Pull the question.
Oh, seeing things through a different perspective. Yeah. So like, okay, if you think about in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 16, there's this story about, or this metaphor that's given by the prophet to talk about Israel as like this unfaithful wife. And the violence that's committed against her by Yahweh, the husband, is pretty atrocious. And Daniel Block, who is, again, a phenomenal scholar, but he has his biases, right? And when he writes about this, and I quote him in the book, it's pretty rough. He basically says, look, when we think about these passages that describe Yahweh as being this like violent husband against an unfaithful wife, we have to make sure that we're reading those passages through the lens of his grace. So I would not encourage anyone who is a battered wife to listen to a counselor that would say, listen, your husband did some pretty terrible things to you, but look, before you judge him on those, you have to remember that you want to see all these terrible things through the lens of his grace. How has he been really, really good to you? How's he been really nice to you? Didn't he give you some gifts? Didn't he take you on a nice trip? Yeah. I mean, it's the only place, like no other place, would anybody advocate for such a thing. But it's because we're trained to think, all right, this is the good guy, this is the bad guy. And what I talk about in the book, and I'll be quiet, but is I make a lot of comparisons to other ancient Near Eastern texts. And I say, okay, if you're going to defend Yahweh's actions in slaughtering the Canaanites, for example, or calling for the slaughter of the Amalekites, because they were wicked, right? Because they did bad things. The Neo-Assyrian kings did the same thing, and they did it because their God told them to, and because their enemies had rebelled against their God. Are we cool with that? And no, of course not, right? But it's because we're not trained to think of the Neo-Assyrians as the good guys. We're not trained to think of anything, probably, most of us. But in the Bible, whoever the good guy is, like, there's got to be a reason. That's why David can, be essentially a thug, right? He can be a gangster. He could be like a mob boss, and nobody blinks because it's like, well, David's the good guy, right? Of course, he should be able to go to Naval and say, "Hey, give my guys a bunch of stuff because they've been protecting your your shepherds out in the field." What? That's a mob thing. Come on, son.
Come on, man. But Josh, why they keep testing my gangster?
I don't know what that means.
God, somebody help me. Somebody. There's a test for gangsterisms.
Yeah, I mean, I just, like I said before, I touch work like I'm convertible Bert,
Yeah, it's bars. Well, before we go, I want to make sure because I'm surprised because I think this is only the second time we've done a TANG stream here because of other technical issues or whatever, and we had 20 or more almost the entire time doing it. So we appreciate everybody being here. Thank you, and we will download this, then upload this to the TANG channel. That way, it's there for everyone to see in the more obviously prominent channel. But before we go, again, Dr. Josh, as always, thank you. Well, for being here, but thank you to you and Megan for the time, the hours and hours that you guys invest into putting your talents and your knowledge and your energy into this material to help our community, and I think most importantly, just trying to show people how to be, whether it's better skeptics or better critical thinkers, or whatever it is, and the contributions you guys make there. Thank you, and to Megan as well. And we're excited. And somebody did say, and I lost it because I forgot to start it, but yes, as Biddy and I would have said, Volume 2 is out, Volume 3 is coming, and that's all the pressure. And somebody did ask when Volume 3 is coming. Megan had told me earlier, like early 2023. I'm kidding. Do not snip that and play that. Megan will kill me.
I mean, we do have the layout, so I know what's going to be in there. As a teaser, there's going to be the archaeology chapter is going to be on the Dead Sea Scrolls, and Kip Davis is going to be supervising the writing of it. So it'll be good.
And I told you I will hurt you. But let me throw this up on screen one more time here. So you can go to Amazon and type in Dr. Joshua Bowen. It'll be right there, or I get the link pinned to the side chat. You can go there. And is that one guy with the cool voice doing the audio again?
He is. He's actually doing it right now. He texted me earlier to have me pronounce Hermania and Ugarit.
Oh.
So he's working on it. I did want to say, like, we do this with all of our books. I know that sometimes, money's a little tight with people, and so coming up at $25 or $35 might be tough. But we always make the Kindle the lowest price that we get, like $9.99, like to where we still actually make a profit. But we try to make those affordable. So hopefully everybody can afford it. The other thing is, people have been recently sending out notice that you can get our ebooks on like certain, I don't know if they're black market, whatever they are. They're like Russian websites or whatever. And I will say this, like, I am a huge proponent of, if people need something and they can't get it, I'm fine with you getting my book for free. Like that I won't lose a bit of sleep over that. But if you can afford it, like it really does help us out. We do these ourselves, so it's a genuine source of income for us. So anyway, that's all.
Yeah. So go click the buttons, buy the books, buy one of each. Fuck it. Buy one of each. It's not going to hurt anything. You can have one to read. You can have one that you use if you stream or you just want to take selfies. Yes, I'm being a salesman right now. But no, go purchase it. And yeah, I want to make sure that I do be proper with this. Yes, the guy with the cool voice I was referring to is the amazing Seth Andrews, and I love that he's helping Josh and Megan with that, and look forward to it. And
so are we.
yeah, you can. Yeah, I think I could listen to an entire phone book or dictionary read.
Yep.
By Seth. So, trying to think. No, so click the links, go buy the books, buy the audio. You know, like Dr. Josh said, they've tried to make it to where even as the audio, you know, anybody and everybody can get their hands and or ears, you know, to the materials. Josh, anything else you'd like to say before we?
No, just thank you so much for having me on. I love coming on. Love coming on. Tang. Got my Tang swag, you know.
Hell yeah, Tang gang. Tang gang.
Yeah. This is for all you non-philosophizing black sheep, unwelcome, pushed to the side motherfuckers like me.
Fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way. Yeah. Fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way. Let's get down to business. These bitches got glitches. And you thought you'd dismiss us? Nah. Now I'm laughing in stitches. See, the problem be, it'll be a tragic travesty to come after me. So just know this is how we get down. Respect that shit like a pronoun, bitch. Yeah. Fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way. Yeah. And fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way. Yeah. Fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way. Yeah. Fuck what they say. Tang gang, Atheist Your Way.